My name is Megan, and I am 28 years old. The story I am about to tell you is about how a painful betrayal by someone who was supposed to be family forced me to rebuild my life and trust, not on the shaky ground they offered, but on foundations I built myself. What happened next, after the initial shock, was even worse than the betrayal itself because it exposed the depth of their manipulation and the web of misunderstandings they had spun. I am going to tell you the full story from the moment I thought I was finally earning my place to the moment I realized I had to walk away and find my own path, even if it meant turning people I grew up around into allies for my independence. If you have ever felt like you were giving your all in a relationship, only to have your efforts dismissed or twisted against you, please let me know where you are listening from in the comments below. And if this story resonates with you, if you understand the pain of familial betrayal and the fight for your own validation, please hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear more stories about finding your strength in the face of adversity. For years, I had lived in the shadow of my older sibling, Alex. Alex was the golden child, the one who effortlessly excelled at everything, or at least, that was the family narrative. Our parents, busy with their own lives and societal appearances, seemed to grant Alex an automatic authority, a right to lead and decide, especially when it came to family matters or the modest family business ventures we had. I was always the quieter one, the one who preferred working diligently behind the scenes, trying to earn a fraction of the recognition that seemed to be Alex's birthright. Our family owned a piece of property, an old building in the town square that had once housed our grandparents' beloved bakery. For years, it had sat empty, a relic of a different time, accumulating taxes and falling into disrepair. It was a source of family pride, but also a burden, a tangible symbol of a legacy that no one currently had the time or energy to maintain. Alex, ever the one with grand plans, had often talked about renovating it, turning it into something new and profitable. But those talks never went beyond vague ideas and pronouncements at family dinners. I, on the other hand, saw potential not just in the building, but in the idea of proving myself. I spent months researching, sketching plans, crunching numbers late into the night after my regular job. I saw a vision for the space, something modern but respectful of its history, a community hub that could generate income and revitalize a corner of our town. It was a massive undertaking, one that required significant capital and even more significant effort to navigate local regulations and construction complexities. I presented my detailed proposal to Alex and our parents during a tense Sunday brunch. I laid out floor plans, projected costs, potential revenue streams, and a clear timeline. I had even secured preliminary interest from a few local businesses willing to lease space if the renovation went ahead. Alex listened, arms crossed, a skeptical look on their face that I knew all too well. Our parents, initially surprised by the depth of my preparation, seemed cautiously optimistic. "This is ambitious, Megan," Alex said finally, picking at a pastry. "Do you really think you can handle a project this size? It's a lot more than just crunching numbers." I felt a familiar sting of dismissal. "I've thought about every aspect, Alex. I've consulted with contractors, architects. I know it's a lot, but I'm prepared to dedicate myself to it. This could be incredibly valuable for the family." After much discussion, negotiation, and Alex's careful positioning of themselves as the ultimate decision-maker and overseer, a deal was struck. I would lead the renovation project. I would manage the contractors, handle the bureaucracy, and source the tenants. Alex, leveraging their existing relationships within the town and seemingly boundless confidence, would handle the major financing approvals and act as the family's official representative, liaising with legal and financial institutions. In exchange for my total dedication and successful completion of the project within the budget and timeline, I was promised a significant share of the future profits and, more importantly to me, a level of recognition and autonomy within the family's affairs that I had never been granted before. This was my bonus, the tangible and intangible reward for successfully bringing this dormant asset back to life. Alex framed it as a test, a chance for me to prove I was capable of handling significant responsibility, a chance to finally step out of their shadow. I desperately wanted to pass that test. I threw myself into the project with every ounce of my being. I quit my regular job, knowing this needed my full attention. The work was grueling. There were unexpected structural issues with the old building, delays in material deliveries, and constant negotiations with contractors. I was on site every day, sometimes from dawn until dusk, covered in dust and sweat, troubleshooting problems, making on-the-fly decisions, and keeping everyone on track. Meanwhile, Alex seemed to glide through their part, attending meetings in crisp suits, making calls from their comfortable office, and occasionally dropping by the site for a brief, critical inspection. They would make comments, sometimes helpful, often just highlighting potential problems I was already aware of and actively solving. They presented themselves to the family and the community as the visionary behind the project, the one making it all possible, while I was just the project manager, the one executing their plan. It hurt, but I focused on the end goal, completing the renovation, securing the future income, and finally, earning that promised share and respect. The project took nearly 2 years, longer and harder than anyone anticipated. But I did it. I brought the old bakery building back to life. It was beautiful, modern, functional, and retained the charm of its history. I had secured leases with 3 promising local businesses, ensuring immediate income streams. The project was completed slightly over budget due to unforeseen issues, but within the extended timeline we had agreed upon. The family was thrilled. Our parents hosted a grand reopening event. There were speeches, accolades, and congratulations all around. Alex stood proudly by my side, accepting praise, introducing me to people as their very capable sister, who had managed the on-the-ground work. Even then, the subtle diminishing of my role was present, but I was high on the success, on the visible proof of my hard work, and I chose to let it slide. I had done it. I had earned my bonus. Or so I thought. The trouble started almost immediately after the ribbon-cutting ceremony. When I asked Alex about the next steps regarding the profit sharing and formalizing my stake in the venture, they became evasive. First, it was delays because of paperwork. Then, it was needing to reevaluate the financials now that the project was complete. Then, it was needing to account for the slight budget overrun, which Alex suggested was due to my management, conveniently forgetting the unforeseen structural issues I had navigated. The conversations grew increasingly uncomfortable. Alex started citing clauses in the initial, informal agreement we had made, twisting the language we used. The promise of a significant share of future profits began to morph into a discussion about a potential performance-based bonus that was subject to review. The recognition and autonomy I craved were replaced with renewed suggestions that I should remain in a supporting role, perhaps managing the property day-to-day, but definitely not having an ownership stake or equal say. The breaking point came during a meeting Alex called, ostensibly to discuss the management structure for the property. Our parents were present, looking uncomfortable but deferential to Alex. Alex presented a formal proposal. It outlined their own role as the managing partner, taking a large percentage of the rental income off the top for management fees and oversight. My role was listed as property administrator, a salaried position with no share of the profits whatsoever. My promised bonus, my stake in the future, was gone. Stripped away. Megan, look, Alex said, leaning back in their chair as if explaining something simple to a child. This is the most practical way forward. I have the relationships, the business acumen to maximize this asset. You did a great job with the renovation, really. But managing a property, handling finances, dealing with tenants, that requires a different skill set, one that, frankly, I'm better equipped for. We'll pay you a good salary, of course. It's a stable job. I stared at them, the words barely registering through the ringing in my ears. Stable job? Salary? After 2 years of pouring my life into that building, taking on all the risk and the dirt and the stress, the reward was a job offer? It felt like a cruel joke. It felt like they had used my desperation for validation, my hard work, my vision to achieve their goal, and now that it was done, I was being neatly packaged into a subordinate role, my contribution minimized, my promised share simply disappearing. But the agreement? I stammered, my voice trembling despite my effort to keep it steady. My share of the profits? We talked about ownership. Alex sighed, a put-upon sound. Megan, that was contingent on a lot of factors. The budget overrun, the need for experienced long-term management, things changed. This is the best way to ensure the property's success. And honestly, you don't have the experience to handle the high-level decisions. This is fair. Fair? The word echoed in the room, hollow and absurd. It wasn't fair. It was a betrayal. A calculated move to take what I had built and claim it entirely, offering me crumbs in return. My parents were silent, their expressions a mixture of awkwardness and what looked suspiciously like agreement with Alex. In their eyes, Alex was the responsible one, the business-minded one. My years of quiet competence seemed to vanish in the face of Alex's confident assertion of control. I left that meeting feeling devastated. The emotional impact was immense. It wasn't just about the money, though that was a significant part of the broken promise. It was about the trust that was shattered, the respect that was denied, the painful realization that despite everything I had done, I was still seen as less than, easily pushed aside, my contributions devalued. I had laid myself bare, shown my capabilities, worked harder than I ever had, and in return, I was given a clear message. You are not an equal. You are not valued for your vision or your effort beyond what you can do for us, on our terms. The next few weeks were a blur of pain and anger. I tried talking to my parents, appealing to their sense of fairness, reminding them of the promises that had been made. But they deferred to Alex, citing Alex's business sense, and arguing that Alex was just looking out for the family's best interests. They urged me to accept Alex's offer, to be reasonable, and not cause a fuss. Their lack of support, their implicit siding with Alex, deepened the wound. I felt isolated, alone, and completely invalidated by the people who were supposed to be my family. I remember sitting alone in my small apartment, surrounded by the remnants of the renovation project, blueprints, expense reports, contractor contact lists. All that work, all that passion, and for what? To be given a salary for managing the very asset I had resurrected? The thought was unbearable. I couldn't work under Alex's authority, not after this. The trust was broken, the power dynamic irrevocably poisoned. Accepting their offer would be accepting my diminished role, accepting their narrative that I wasn't capable of more, accepting the injustice. I knew, deep down, I couldn't do it. But refusing meant starting over. It meant walking away from the income stream I had created, walking away from the potential future profits, walking away from a situation where, despite the betrayal, there was still a connection to the family asset I had poured my heart into. It felt terrifying. How would I support myself? How would I build something new when I had nothing? Then, something shifted within me. The pain and anger began to solidify into determination. I looked at the pile of contacts on my desk, the local business owners I had secured as tenants, the contractors I had worked closely with, the community leaders I had met during the renovation process. These were the clients Alex leveraged their connections to initially attract or impress, or who became involved because of the project I managed. They knew me. They had seen my work ethic, my dedication, my ability to overcome obstacles. They had seen me on the ground, making things happen, not just talking about them from an office. Alex had relied on their reputation and position to open doors, but I had been the one who built the relationships through consistent, reliable interaction. I had earned the respect of these people through my actions, my transparency, my commitment to the project's success. While Alex was the family representative, I was the one who had been in the trenches with the builders, who had negotiated lease terms directly with the tenants, who had attended community meetings and explained the project's vision. They trusted me. An idea, bold and terrifying, began to form. If Alex had stripped me of my promised share, if they had denied me the opportunity to build my future within the family structure, then perhaps I could build my future outside of it, leveraging the very relationships I had cultivated during the project. I wouldn't turn Alex's clients into literal financial investors in the old bakery building. That wasn't possible or even desirable anymore. But I could turn them into investors in me. Investors in my capability, my integrity, my future ventures. The struggle for validation hadn't ended with Alex's betrayal, it had intensified. Now, it wasn't just about proving myself to my family, but about proving myself to the world and, more importantly, to myself. I needed to show that my value wasn't dependent on Alex's approval or the family structure. I needed to build something that was unequivocally mine. It was daunting. Reaching out felt vulnerable. It meant admitting, implicitly or explicitly, that things hadn't worked out with my family, that I had been wronged. It meant risking awkwardness, disbelief, or even being seen as bitter or difficult. But the alternative, accepting Alex's offer and living with the constant reminder of the betrayal, felt far worse. Setting this boundary, saying no to their terms and seeking my own path, was essential for my healing and growth. I started small. I reached out to one of the local business owners who had leased space in the renovated building, a woman named Maria who ran a successful bookstore. I had worked closely with Maria, helping her envision her space, ensuring the renovation met her specific needs. We had built a rapport. I asked her if she would be willing to meet for coffee. Sitting across from Maria, explaining the situation felt incredibly difficult. I chose my words carefully, focusing on the facts of the broken agreement and my decision not to accept Alex's proposed role, rather than dwelling on emotional accusations. I spoke about my vision for the future, my desire to start my own project management consulting business, perhaps focusing on revitalizing other neglected properties in the area or helping small businesses with their expansion plans. I wasn't asking for money. I was asking for advice, for connections, for her perspective, and implicitly, for her belief in me. Maria listened intently. When I finished, there was a long pause. My heart pounded in my chest. Had I made a mistake? Would she see me as unreliable, someone who couldn't even work with her own family? Then, Maria smiled. "Megan," she said, her voice warm and genuine. "I worked with you for 2 years. I saw how hard you worked. I saw the problems you solved. I saw how you dealt with people, fairly, honestly. I saw your vision for that building, and you made it happen. Frankly, I was surprised Alex took over the management. You were the one doing the work." Relief washed over me, so strong it almost made me weak. "So, you understand?" "I do," she said firmly. "And I believe in you, Megan. That building is a testament to your capabilities. A consulting business? That makes perfect sense. You have the skills, the experience, the drive. And you have something Alex doesn't. You know how to build relationships based on mutual respect, not just position." Maria didn't offer me money, but she offered something far more valuable: validation and connections. She connected me with other business owners she knew, people who respected her judgment. She spoke about my work ethic and the success of the renovation project, framing it as my achievement. She became an early investor in my future, not with capital, but with social currency and belief. Encouraged by my conversation with Maria, I reached out to others. The contractor who had been the most reliable and fair during the renovation, a man named David, was another key person I connected with. I was nervous approaching him. Our relationship had been strictly professional, but I decided to be upfront. "David," I explained, "I've started my own thing. Things didn't work out with the family project the way I had hoped, in terms of my role going forward. I'm looking to start a project management consulting business, focusing on similar revitalization projects." David leaned back in his chair, considering. "Yeah, I heard some talk. Figured something was up when Alex was suddenly the main point of contact instead of you. You built that place, Megan. We all saw it. You were on site every day, knew every bolt and beam. Alex just signed checks." His blunt assessment was both shocking and incredibly affirming. He saw it too. He hadn't been fooled by Alex's performance. "I don't have projects lined up yet," I admitted. "But I wanted to let people who know my work know what I'm doing. I trust you, David, and I value your opinion. If you ever hear of anyone needing someone to manage a renovation, someone who knows how to work with contractors." David nodded slowly. "You're good people, Megan. You're fair, you're smart, and you get things done. A lot of folks in this town, they got property sitting idle, or projects they don't know how to tackle. They need someone they can trust. You build that kind of trust. Tell you what, I got a couple of buddies. They're always looking for reliable project managers for their clients. I'll put in a good word." And if I get any calls directly, I'll send them your way. Consider me an investor in your new venture. The feeling of having my work and my character validated by these professionals, people who had no emotional obligation to me but had seen my capabilities firsthand, was incredibly empowering. It was the validation Alex and my parents had withheld, given freely by those who had worked alongside me. These were my new investors. They weren't investing money, but they were investing their trust, their reputations, and their connections in me. They were helping me build my future, independent of the toxic family dynamic. As I continued to reach out, I discovered that the network I had built during the renovation was larger and stronger than I had realized. People I had simply exchanged pleasantries with at the site, suppliers I had negotiated with, even town officials I had navigated bureaucracy with, many remembered me and my dedication. They had seen me putting in the work, and they were willing to listen. Some offered advice, some offered introductions, and some even mentioned potential small projects they needed help with, things that could become my first consulting gigs. This period was still emotionally challenging. There were days filled with self-doubt, moments where the sting of the betrayal felt fresh, times I questioned if I was doing the right thing by cutting myself off from the family asset and pursuing this uncertain path. Alex and my parents continued to pressure me, framing my decision as stubbornness or immaturity. They couldn't seem to grasp that their actions had consequences, that broken trust couldn't be easily mended, and that my worth wasn't up for their negotiation. They continued to spread their narrative, that I was difficult, that I was overreacting, that I wasn't cut out for the real responsibility anyway. This misrepresentation of my character and the situation was deeply painful. It felt like a second betrayal, a deliberate attempt to tarnish my reputation and justify their actions. It was another layer of the fight for validation, not just proving my capabilities, but also defending my character against their lies. I knew a confrontation was likely inevitable. As I started to gain traction with my own consulting work, taking on small projects and proving myself once again, the whispers about my independence and the implied conflict with Alex reached the family. The confrontation happened at a seemingly innocuous family gathering, a distant cousin's birthday party. Alex cornered me near the patio, a tight smile on their face that didn't reach their eyes. "Heard you've been busy, Megan," Alex said, their tone deceptively casual. "Talking to people about things." I met their gaze steadily. I had anticipated this. I was nervous, but the support and belief I had found outside the family had given me strength. I had set my boundary by walking away from their offer, and now it was time to defend that boundary and speak my truth. "I have been busy, Alex," I replied calmly, "building my own business, doing project management." "Right," Alex said, their smile hardening. "Because working with family was just too difficult for you, apparently. Needed to go out and tell everyone how wronged you were?" Their attempt to frame me as a victim, as someone who was just complaining, sparked a fire in me. "No, Alex," I said, keeping my voice low but firm. "I've been talking to people who saw the work I did on the building. People who understand what it takes to bring a project like that to life. People who believe in my ability to deliver because they saw it firsthand." Alex's eyes narrowed. "And what exactly are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything," I said. "I'm stating a fact. You chose to break our agreement. You chose to take my contribution and offer me a subordinate role after promising me a share of the future. That was your decision. My decision was to not accept that and instead build something for myself, where my work is valued and my agreements are honored." "Valued?" Alex scoffed. "You overran the budget. You think that deserves a share?" The budget overrun was due to unforeseen structural issues that I identified and solved, ensuring the building was safe and sound. I retorted, my voice rising slightly despite myself. "Something you conveniently left out when you decided to rewrite our deal. And yes, I think delivering a fully renovated, income-generating property, overcoming significant challenges along the way, deserves the compensation that was promised." Our parents, overhearing the raised voices, approached cautiously. Other family members were starting to turn their heads. The air grew thick with tension. "Megan, Alex, please," our mother said, wringing her hands. "It's all right, Mother," Alex said, turning to them with a practiced, reassuring look, as if I was the one causing an unnecessary scene. Megan is just having trouble accepting that not everyone gets everything they want. I'm trying to explain that the terms changed. The terms didn't change, Alex, I said, stepping forward slightly. You changed the terms. After I did all the work, you leveraged my effort, my vision, my time, and then you cut me out. That's not changing terms. That's breaking a promise. That's betrayal. I looked directly at Alex, then at my parents. And while you were telling everyone I was difficult or incapable, I was building my own path. I've been talking to the people I worked with, Maria from the bookstore, David the contractor, others in town. They know what I did. They saw the reality of the situation. And they're supporting me. They are my investors now, not in the old building, but in my future. Because they believe in me, in my integrity, and in my ability. The effect of this statement was palpable. Alex's confident posture faltered slightly. My parents looked surprised, then uncomfortable. They had likely believed Alex's narrative that I was isolated and disgruntled. The idea that I had actively sought out and found support among people they considered part of their network was clearly unexpected and unsettling. You went behind my back? Alex's voice was sharper now, laced with accusation. I didn't go behind your back, Alex, I stated, my voice regaining its calm power. You closed the door on me. I opened my own. These are people I built relationships with through hard work and trust. They aren't your possessions to control or dictate who they speak to. They are independent people who made their own decisions based on their own experiences. And they chose to support me. This was the climax. Standing there, surrounded by family but separate, articulating my truth and revealing the support I had found outside their control, felt incredibly vindicating. I wasn't seeking their approval anymore. I wasn't begging for my promised share. I was simply stating the reality of what they had done and the reality of my response. I had taken the network I had built, the people Alex had underestimated my influence with, and turned them into my allies, my foundation for independence. The confrontation ended awkwardly. Alex, unused to being challenged so directly and publicly, retreated, muttering about needing to speak to someone else. My parents were flustered, trying to smooth over the tension with forced conversation. Other family members averted their eyes, unsure how to react. In the days and weeks that followed, the family dynamics shifted irrevocably. There was no dramatic reconciliation. Alex largely avoided me, the unspoken accusation of my supposed disloyalty hanging in the air. My parents were distant, their attempts at communication stilted and uncomfortable. It was clear they felt I had disrupted the family harmony, choosing my own path over their preferred narrative and structure. But for me, something profound had changed. The pain of the betrayal still lingered, a scar that reminded me of the cost of misplaced trust. But it was no longer the dominant emotion. It was replaced by a quiet confidence, a sense of hard-won agency. I had faced a significant injustice, felt its crushing weight, and instead of being defeated, I had found a way to channel my energy into building something new and strong. My project management consulting business began to grow. The leads from Maria, David, and others led to small projects, which I completed successfully, earning positive referrals. I was working harder than ever, but it was my work for my future. The people who had become my investors, the local business owners, contractors, community members, continued to be a source of support and connection. They were more than just professional contacts. They were people who saw me, believed in me, and helped me stand on my own 2 feet when my own family had tried to cut the ground out from under me. I learned invaluable lessons through this ordeal. I learned that validation sought from others, especially those whose approval is conditional or tied to control, will always be fragile. True validation has to come from within, built on your own integrity, hard work, and the evidence of your own capabilities. I learned that boundaries are not walls built to keep others out, but lines drawn to protect your own well-being and sense of self-worth. Saying no to a toxic situation, even a familial one, is an act of self-preservation and empowerment. I also learned about the power of genuine connection. While family ties are powerful, the relationships built on mutual respect, trust, and shared experience with people outside that immediate circle can provide an essential safety net and a different kind of belonging. My investors weren't family by blood, but they became a chosen network of support that helped me thrive. The dynamic with Alex and my parents is still strained today. We exist in a state of polite distance. The old bakery building continues to generate income under Alex's management, a constant reminder of what happened. There has been no apology, no acknowledgement from Alex that they broke their promise or that their actions were wrong. My parents still hold onto their narrative that I was difficult. I have accepted that full reconciliation, in the way I once longed for, may never happen. The trust was too deeply broken. But I no longer need their approval or their recognition. I have built my own success on my own terms, with the support of people who value me for who I am and what I do. The pain of the betrayal forced me to confront difficult truths, to find strength I didn't know I had, and to build a future that is truly mine. I took what felt like a devastating loss and turned it into the catalyst for my independence. I may have lost a promised bonus and a certain family dynamic, but I gained my self-worth, my agency, and a network of incredible people who chose to invest in me. Thank you for listening to my story. It's been a difficult journey, but one that ultimately led me to a place of greater strength and authenticity. If you've gone through something similar, fighting for recognition, or dealing with betrayal within your own family, please share your experience in the comments below. You are not alone. If this story resonated with you, if it sparked something within you about standing up for yourself or finding your own path, please hit that like button. Your support means a lot. And if you want to hear more stories like mine, stories about overcoming challenges, setting boundaries, and finding your voice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Remember, your truth is valid, and your worth is not determined by others. Speak your truth, trust in your own capabilities, and build the life you deserve.